Welcome everybody to March's edition of Tech Tuesday. This event is organized by the Innovation Center at Medical Center of the Americas. The Innovation Center helps entrepreneurs and innovators with anything that is related to startups and from education, training, resource searching, networking. And part of the education training is this Tech Tuesdays. This year we have a series called Fueling Innovation, where each month we're going to look at different sources of innovation. Last month we had Fueling Innovation through technology. And this month we're going to have Fueling Innovation through resources. We have with us Sara Gonzalez, Pablo Aldaba, and Kathy Shen from FabLab Juarez and El Paso. Sara Gonzalez is an industrial designer and has a master's in design and innovation. She's been a speaker at several international design conferences from Ecuador, Colombia, and Singapore. Her interests are in furniture, jewelry, interior design, biomimetics, and many other areas. She's the founder of Creadora Studio, a product design studio that creates pieces combining digital and handmade manufacturing. Currently, she's a coordinator at FabLab Juarez. Pablo Aldaba is an industrial engineer with a master's in design and project development. He has over a decade in experience and has gained national and international recognition. Studied at Arsutoria, correct me, Pablo, if I'm wrong, school in Milan, Italy, and Pensole Footwear Design Academy in Portland, Oregon. He is mainly focused on footwear, product, jewelry, and exhibition design. Has worked with brands like Nike Mexico, Asics, Tiger, and Foot Locker. He's currently the manager of FabLab Juarez. And also, we have with us Kathy Shen. She's the co-founder and executive director of FabLab El Paso, a champion of the maker movement. In 2016, she was named STEM Educator of the Year by Chevron. She studied literature at Duke University and International Media Design Masters in Keio University in Tokyo, and completed the core certificate in Harvard Business School. Kathy is a native to New York City, but currently residing in El Paso, Texas. So with that, welcome, Pablo, Sara, and Kathy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's so great having you here. First of all, the first question, kind of obvious one. What could you explain, like personally, what is FabLab?
I guess I'll take this one. FabLab is short for Fabrication Laboratory. We get this question a lot since we work with so many kids. The kids are always like, what is FabLab? Is it Fabulous Laboratory? And we always tell them it's also very fabulous, of course. But the original FabLab was out of MIT in their media lab, part of the Center for Bits and Atoms. And it was started by a professor called Dr. Neil Gershenfeld, who taught a class to a group of engineering students called How to Make Almost Anything. And from that course, they started building out like a hands-on space for the engineers who were taking this course with Dr. Gershenfeld. And they soon realized that with just these very, relatively simple and relatively affordable desktop technologies, you can really make almost anything. And this idea grew out of Boston and kind of spread across the globe. And now I believe there's over, 4,000 Fab Labs worldwide. There's a Fab Lab on every continent. I think there's even a Fab Lab in Antarctica that's doing a lot of research, which is really cool. I hope to visit that Fab Lab one day. But yeah, so that's in a nutshell what a Fab Lab is.
Okay, great. And Pablo, Sara, if you could answer, like, what would be the main tenets, or what would be like the Fab Lab creator?
Well, our main objectives are open source. All the things we are creating, the Fab Lab, we are going to always share it. So that's the first one, the creativity, the teamwork, the problem solving, the experimentation, and also the proactive learning. So in the Fab Lab, we have it's a space of creative community, and we are targeting those objectives all the time.
Okay. Now, you, Sarah and Pablo, you work in Juarez, and you're partners with a larger innovation center that's called the Tech Hub. Does that allow you anything like different from other Fab Labs?
Yes, that's true. We are here in Technology Hub facilities. And I think in this Fab Lab, so until now we are 3 Fab Labs, but Fab Lab Juarez was the first Fab Lab here in Juarez, and it's located in Technology Hub. I think this is a great opportunity for us to link with the companies that come here for businesses or for innovation projects, working with Technology Hub and the other companies that work in collaboration with Technology Hub. I think a lot of people come with Fab Lab. That was a recommendation of Technology Hub, and these people could be companies or could be professors, academics, or just public in general, entrepreneurs that want to create something. This could be a service, or this could be a product also. So I think we are in a great in a great area in collaboration with Technology Hub.
Great, great. That sense of community. And speaking of which, Kathy, I must ask, from reading your bio, it's kind of from a different perspective how you entered to the whole Fab Lab and Makerspace. What was it about it that gave you the impetus to start the Fab Lab in El Paso?
So I started joining Fab Labs when I was at Duke University in North Carolina. The first Fab Lab Makerspace that I joined was actually the big box, like Walmart version of Makerspaces. It was Tech Shop. And I remember at the time, there was, it was like a multi-million-dollar fabrication facility, and it was very different from the Fab Lab and the Makerspace that I started in El Paso. After I graduated from Duke and I went to Tokyo, I was also part of Tokyo Makerspace, and I was part of Fab Cafe. And I was really influenced by, I think, the Japanese maker community, because you saw this very stark contrast between American makers and Japanese makers. In America, it's predominantly male, predominantly white, and it's very engineering focused, very robotics focused. And when I went to Japan, I went to a makerspace and there were actually women there, and there were artists there and architects. And even though the focus was, on how to use the machines, it was about the creativity. Whereas in the US, overwhelmingly, it was more about the nuts and bolts of the mechanical aspects of the machines that really drove people to participate in the spaces. And it's just, there's not one is like better than the other, but it's just two very different flavors. And I always, envisioned that a community, especially a grassroots nonprofit like Fab Lab El Paso, should be as inclusive and diverse as possible. So I really embraced this, vision of a Japanese maker culture and tried to transport that to El Paso when me and my husband moved here. And we saw a lot of the right ingredients to do that as well, because there was a thriving art scene in El Paso. And some of our earliest adopters were not engineers and computer scientists, but were the artists and architects in our community and designers who came to use the lab. So, and out of that, I think just grew this sense of having a different mental outlook and mindset to maker culture than the traditional US one.
Yeah, yeah. Now that you mention it, it is like prominently focused on STEM fields, and a lot of the research and development is focused on that. But yeah, there's a lot of design and a lot of artists and other fields that really could use the whole inclusive space of the maker space and the Fab Labs. That's great. So I think I would like to remind all of the audience that if you have any questions, you could type it into the chat box and we'll weave it onto the conversation. Now, moving on, thank you so much for like explaining what the Fab Lab is. And like the theme of this talk is like resources, right? So let's dive into what are the resources that an innovator or maker can tap into each of your Fab Labs. From what I gather, no Fab Lab is the same. They have different resources, and even the community aspect is different. So what's specific to each one of your Fab Labs? If Fab Lab Juarez would like to start.
Yes. Here in Fab Lab Juarez, the people or public can find digital fabrication using 3D printers, and we have 2 different technologies of 3D printer. We have SLA, that is Formlabs printers, and we have FDM technology, that is the most common or domestic printers. And also we have a machine that is a laser cutting. We have also 3D scanners. We have a CNC router. We have VR Oculus lenses, and all of this technology we use to create projects sometimes, or to support another technology to create something new, or to provide a better experience for users. And we use these technologies to provide for the public, and I invite to use these technologies to be creative and innovative to solve problems.
Okay, so you have all of these machines. Do you have any specific target audience?
Well, we like to think that we don't have a target audience, but our target audience is people who are willing to experiment with different materials or processes to reach to different results. People who are able to think outside the box, but we are, like Kathy says, we attend a lot of designers, a lot of engineers, a lot of students, but also a lot of kids, a lot of parents that want to their kids learn about the 3D printing or the 3D modeling. Also such workshops, such as carpentry, laser cutting, CNC cutting, program robotics, and yeah, that's what we are, and what our audience are, especially kids.
Oh, that's great, the kids. Kathy, same questions. What resources do you have, and if you have a target audience?
Yeah, so based on this idea of making locally and fabricating globally, all the Fab Labs have a relatively similar set of machines. It might be different, brands, but it has more or less the same capabilities. So, to reiterate what Sara and Pablo said, we also have FDM and SLA 3D printers. We're looking at acquiring an SLS 3D printer, but proceeding with caution, just because those machines take up a very big footprint, and we're a little bit pressed for real estate right now. And we also do laser cutting, CNC machining, a lot of 2D to 3D design. We also provide CAD services. So yeah, a lot of the services and capabilities we provide, it's really twofold, right? One is community facing, more towards education and sort of workforce training, getting people familiarized with the basic skill sets that are integral to using rapid prototyping tools. And then on the other side, so we're a little bit different. A lot of Fab Labs operate on a membership model where you can pay, it's like a gym, for nerds. You pay like a monthly fee and you go in and you can use all the equipment. And this is a very common model for a lot of maker spaces. But through some trial and error that we had in El Paso, we found that that model actually didn't really have the impact that we wanted for the community. We kind of needed to start from the beginning and give people opportunities to really, bring their ideas to life without, burdening them with having to learn CAD, right? Or learn how to operate these heavy machinery, because there's a very sharp learning curve. And hopefully in the next few years, as we ramp up maker culture in our region, we will be able to have a homegrown membership base. But for us, right now, it's more about providing a digital fabrication and design service to our community so that people can really go from point A to point C, to go from ideation to product, and have that pathway, laid out for them. So we hire and work with a lot of engineers and designers so that people can really come in and just focus on developing their product. So those are, some of the resources. And of course, on the education side, we are a big resource for a lot of the independent school districts in El Paso, like Isleta and Socorro. We work really closely with them to provide workshops for their students. And I'm very happy to say that this year we started a really wonderful partnership with UTEP. There's been multiple programs that we have been working with some of the departments, the business school, we're doing Python classes for the business students, and we're also working with the new Aspire Center at UTEP that's focused on sustainability and working with first generation college bound high school students so that they get the resources that they would otherwise miss out on, and help them get college bound and college ready. So really excited about that.
Okay, that sounds great. Those are really interesting outreach programs. And I think that, yeah, we kind of skipped over that on Fab Lab Juarez. If you could elaborate a bit on what outreach programs do you have, like with schools or with businesses outside Fab Lab Juarez?
Yes, here in Fab Lab Juarez, we have some programs, and specific, the name is Fab Lab Edu. And we work with the high schools here in Juarez, and we develop the program, and we provide classes in 4 specific areas. These areas are robotics, programming, digital fabrication, and electronics. And the intention is to provide these guys with a new knowledge, just to motivate them to continue with school after high school. So if they know more about these new technologies, we believe that they are more enthusiastic in to create something with this technology, and to learn more about programming or maybe robotics. And the other program that we have is Makers, and this program is focused also in high school, and the objective is to create a 3D printer. The facilitator just gave this knowledge about how to create 3D printers, and after the 3D printer is created or assembled, they teach how to use this 3D printer, and then we donate this 3D printer to the school. I think these 2 projects are a good programs that we have, and we have delivered for the 2 last years, or 3 maybe.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, that's great. The like making 3D printers, like fabricating 3D printers is kind of like the rep rap, if I'm correct, like using a 3D printer to create more 3D printers and all that.
Yes, this program is not more about to create. It's more like we buy the 3D printer, this assembly, this desarmado,
Oh, okay.
and yes, and
Yeah.
we teach the students how to assemble this 3D printer, and in the process, the students know how is the functionality of the 3D printer, how you can connect these electronics or these the rails and all of that stuff.
Okay. Great. And there's one last aspect of the resources that I would like to touch on, and is that, well, you both come from different sides of the border. There's the internationality of this, and that's something that it's admirable of the Fab Lab community. How can an innovator, a maker, like tap into international resources? Are there conferences? Are there like contests internationally, or networks internationally that innovators can access to?
Yeah, definitely. I think the one that I'm sure Sara and Pablo are also aware of is the big Fab Lab conference that happens every year. Last year, though, it was unfortunately canceled, and it's really sad because for the longest time, it happens, all over the world, and it finally cycled to North America. They were going to host the Fab 16 in Montreal. And it was finally like, accessible. We can afford to go. And of course, COVID wiped out all of our travel plans. But the good news is I think they are planning to host it again in Montreal this year. So they're having like a redo moment for Fab 16. But yeah, there are the international Fab Lab conferences. And then there are a number of other smaller conferences that at least we attend. Fab Lab El Paso, we attended Construct 3D at Rice University in February of last year, right before the pandemic. And that was a really wonderful opportunity to connect with additive manufacturers from North America, especially from our region in Texas. And we also attend a digital fabrication conference that's run by the North American Digital Fabrication Alliance. And that was a little bit of a spin-off from a previous organization called Fab Lab Hub that used to consult for the Fab Foundation at MIT. The founder is someone that I consider a mentor of mine. Her name is Sarah Beauvert, and she's like a powerhouse sort of player within the Fab Lab community. And there are, of course, so many digital fabrication conferences, but in terms of just for Fab Labs, I would say the Fab conferences, the Fab X conferences.
Okay. And in the Mexican side, are there, how do one taps into that international or national resources?
Yeah, we have the Fab Lab. That is all the organization, all the Fab Labs in Latin America arrives to every country of Latin America, but the last year was also canceled because of the pandemic. But I think this year is going to be, I don't know where, but this year is going to be also virtually. But yeah, we are connected with all Fab Labs in Latin America and in Mexico too.
Okay. Great. That's great that they have you have the international aspect, and they have the opportunity to come to the region. So, okay, then you have all of these resources. You have the community, the education, the technology, all the machinery. How do these resources foster innovation? Like, how specifically is it that like somebody that isn't like inclined to innovation looks at these resources and thinks, okay, maybe I could do this project with these things, or maybe connecting with these people, we can do these things. So how does it work that that innovation is spurred from the Fab Lab?
I think you
No,
got
go
it.
ahead, Pablo. Go ahead.
Okay. I think that Fab Lab is a global network. So the community that we are, it's an interesting community, and we share ideas and also projects in around the globe. So I think we use this community to invite people to use this technology to create something new. And for example, during this pandemic, in the last year in 2020, we found some projects that support medical people, like face mask or something, and all of this Fab Lab was producing and also designing to help this medical personnel. And I think these spaces give the opportunity to create something useful in a short time with the additive manufacturing. So I think we promote this digital fabrication to create and also support in difficult times like this pandemic, and also to evaluate if digital fabrication can improve something, or with this technology we use to ideate or to complement something for the real life, or for like this pandemic. Maybe in a later we can solve another thing. And I think we use our community to spread these good projects, and also to help people around the world.
Great. Kathy, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I think Pablo, did a really good job of just explaining the importance of this resource. As we've witnessed with the pandemic, there was a disruption to the global supply chains, and all of a sudden Fab Labs became like a source of local supply chain for people who needed life-saving products, right? Like the PPE that both Fab Lab Juarez and Fab Lab El Paso were participating in producing for our local community. That was just a really good example of the resiliency of having small batch custom production ready on hand, right? Like that resource and those tools ready. And that's the harnessing the power of Fab Labs, right? Harnessing the power of these resources is not only can we be a test site for your MVP, right? For your prototype, but we can also do very custom products that bigger manufacturers, they won't even look at, right? I mean, when you go to a industrial manufacturing setting, if you're not talking in the tens of thousands in terms of production unit, they're not even going to look at you seriously, right? So if you're looking for smaller batch custom productions, or a pilot test run for a product, you really are looking at Fab Labs and other similar spaces to provide you with that kind of service. But in terms of, I wanted to, say that in terms of the work we are doing in getting people to engage with these resources, our region, at least in El Paso, because I'm not as familiar with Juarez, we really have to start from step 0. We tried to start from step 1, and that was like one step too many. We had to start from 0, because in our region, people don't even self-identify as makers yet. We really have to first sow the seed of the maker culture, of getting people to realize, wait a minute, I make things, I'm a creator, I have the power and the imagination, right? And I have the resources to be able to invent things, patent things, bring them into the market. And we really did a lot in terms of really doing a lot of narrations and storytelling. In the last year during the pandemic, I co-produced a documentary film that we're going to be premiering next month at the Cleveland International Film Festival. And that's not something that normally EDs at Fab Labs do. You know, they don't produce films. But we felt that it was very important for our mission in El Paso because, like I said, we needed to start from step 0, which is getting people to understand the concept of maker culture and empowering them to be able to declare themselves makers. So that I think is a really important way to get people to even come use your resources.
Okay. That's a pretty important point that, yeah, the region, one has to adapt to the region. And if here, at least there's not so much maker culture, then yeah, start from scratch. Try to inspire them to see what resources and what they can build. Pablo, Sarah, do you have anything more to elaborate on that point?
I think the difference between a maker and a person that doesn't know who is a maker yet is the motivation. Because sometimes many people arrive here to Fab Lab and they think that, I don't know, they can, they came with an idea of Pinterest, for example, and they think they can press a button and then the product is going to be like done. But I think it's our mission to teach them to fabricate things, to teach them that they can make things, they can be makers. I think that the difference between people, and also there are very different educational profiles that they don't see things like a designer or as an artist or as a maker, no? But I think that people can be able to learn those stuff. I don't think it's a thing that you born with. I think it's a thing that you develop on your life, and it's important to be that example of people that we can make things. No, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely important because not just having the resources, the machines there means that people are gonna use them and actually make stuff. There needs to be like different components to that like the community aspect. That's actually a question that Nancy Lowry posted on the chat. Like, how can the community help sow the seeds of being a maker?
I'll answer that because I think Nancy asked that while I was speaking. So I think, you know, a great way to help sow the seeds is really to amplify the success stories that we have, because there are instances of amazing accomplishments on the border that, you know, I think the majority of us are just not aware of because we don't have these channels for amplifying and broadcasting our success. And oftentimes, you know, this is how I feel, but there's a narrative, especially on the US side. You know, there was in the last 4 years a political agenda of, you know, forcing a narrative on the border. And we as a community sometimes have to be just very passive and accepting that narrative, you know? So I think in being active about kind of taking a hold of our own identity and our own storytelling and making sure that all of the messaging and the promotions within our community are aligned with this sense of empowerment, diversity, and inclusion. That's really, you know, how we can sow the seeds. And then, of course, you know, we are working very actively with the next generation, and they are they're tech natives, right? They're digital natives in a way that I think all of us in our generation, we're like the half generation where we grew up with analog and then had to transition to digital. I mean, my kid who's 7, like he is already a digital native, right? He grew up with the internet, he grew up with all of these tools and resources. And to him, using these interfaces is gonna be, you know, a lot easier. But what we're teaching kids is, okay, you don't have to just be a passive user of technology. you can be an active content creator. You can actively, engage and be able to shape the trajectory of where technology is going, how it's helping people, who it's helping. So yeah, so it's really along those lines of, again, working with kids, right? You're literally sowing the seeds for the next generation, but at the same time, creating pathways for success stories to emerge so that we can get everyone in the community feeling that they can do it as well.
Okay, thank you so much for answering that. And I would like to go into, you have a very cross-discipline community. Like there's people coming from very different backgrounds and very different interests, and some have the knowledge of like digital production, and some others have other skill sets. Like, how is this cross-disciplinary community, how does it affect innovation in your Fab Lab? Sarah, Pablo?
Yes, I think if we provide the basic of this technology and also the innovation, and for example, we have supporting an entrepreneur here in Fab Lab Juarez, and she was liar. I don't remember, but she was to create a new product, but she didn't know how to make a render or how to make a prototype. So we help her in this process. So we help to make her renders, and also the prototype, and also how to sell the idea, how to structure the storytelling about this project. And I think it's our mission. If we have the background about design, about the storyteller, it's to provide or to support these people that want to make something different than than their backgrounds or academic backgrounds. Yes, I think in this space we promote the innovation, also the creativity, to make not only products, also this could be also services and maybe processes to implement processes in different areas.
Okay, and yeah, well, you mentioned that there's storytelling involved. There's also like a mentoring on the selling of the product. So it's not just about the product design. It's not just about making it. It's also about the entrepreneurship. Is that usual on all of the rest of the Fab Labs, or is something that is very local? Like, I mean, the support to entrepreneurship specifically.
Well, I don't know if in Fab Lab El Paso have that or another Fab Labs, but here in Fab Lab Juarez we have it because as we grow with the Technology Hub and Fundación Axel, that is a NGO, right? NGO.
Yeah.
Is Fundación Axel is focused on entrepreneurship, on social innovation. So we are focused on help people to begin with an idea and develop it to a product or a project that they can sell or they can live with that. Because in Juarez we have a lot of commerce that it doesn't ¿cómo se dice? Que no está registrado en el SAT.
That is register.
Non-formal, non-formal company.
Yeah, we have that, and we want to help them to become a better company or a better product design. So yeah, here in Juarez, in Fab Lab Juarez, it's very common that we have a lot of people that want to begin or products or their intangible products like an application or like a service or different things. But here, yeah, we help them with that too.
Kathy, you have mentioned a bit of entrepreneurship support. In your experience, is that common among other Fab Labs?
Actually, it's actually very uncommon in Fab Labs. I think the overwhelming focus for Fab Labs has been fabrication and prototyping. So I think where our parameters sort of stop is after the minimal viable product. And actually in El Paso, there are other organizations that we partner with and work with. And I saw that actually one of them is on the call, STTE Foundation. They do really amazing work with high school students to, basically take them to the next step of how do you, approach entrepreneurship. But it's a little bit of a mixed bag with Fab Labs because, traditional Fab Labs really focus a lot on hardware. But with a lot of the investment, like angel investing, and a lot of investors are really looking for software. So you see this kind of imbalance too in the ecosystem where overwhelmingly, software companies are being incubated a lot more than hardware, especially in the US, right? Because we're transitioning away from like material and like material fabrication, which makes it a little bit hard for our manufacturing sector. But we do try to connect people, at least from their ideation, give them resources, point them to other organizations who are doing amazing jobs in promoting that entrepreneurship aspect in our community. But I would say that, yeah, we're a little bit more siloed than Fab Lab Juarez, because I think they are part of this greater tech hub. They're already part of a tech campus, whereas we are more, at least of right now, we're more partitioned in just the digital fabrication and prototyping aspect of this.
Yeah, that's very interesting. The different aspects, the partners, the location actually dictate what are the resources that innovators can access to. So yeah, that's a pretty interesting difference. And last Tech Tuesday, we were talking about one of the most interesting points that kind of stuck with me is that we have so much technology, but the main thing that we can't utilize to its fullest potential is that we lack infrastructure and resources and education. Sorry, infrastructure and education. And one of the examples is that with COVID, most schools and companies wanted to give employees and their students laptops. But if they don't have access to internet, quality internet, and if they don't have the knowledge to like utilize the computer, then the technology is there, but there won't be enough to foment innovation. So in that note, the Fab Labs have this enormous amount of resources, this enormous amount of connections, technology, of education, of all of those programs. And you have the infrastructure and the education that we were talking about. How is it that you utilize all of these things together? How is it that the final like the final impact to fueling innovation?
Well, I would like to mention in our specific case here in Juarez, we until now we are 3 Fab Labs here that it's from Fundación Axel. This is Fab Lab Juarez with Sara and I. We are co-workers, and the second one is Fab Lab Paso del Norte, that is focused on social projects. So maybe that's why we are more related with entrepreneurship workshops or something like that, because we provide this knowledge for people that are in the southeast area. And also the third one is the Fab Lab Mobile. Fab Lab Mobile is a van that we are creating, or we are to equip with this technology like 3D printers and a small laser cutting, and also VR lenses. And the objective of this third Fab Lab is to move or technologies or to schools, and also to areas where people cannot have this technology, or maybe they cannot come here to Fab Lab Juárez or to Fab Lab Paso del Norte, and we move to this area and to promote this technology and show how these machines and this software hardware can make something different in the daily activities. This is our specific case here in Juarez, and we believe that if they cannot come here, we can go there and show what is the technology that we are using.
Yeah, that's great. One of the limiting factors of Fab Labs is, I imagine, is it's a physical space. So people need to go there to learn or to develop. When you have a Fab Lab mobile, that's pretty cool to go to different areas that wouldn't have access to normally. Yeah, so Kathy, how is it the Fab Lab El Paso like leverages all of these different resources, infrastructure and education?
Yeah, so actually we, Fab Lab Juarez and Fab Lab El Paso were developing the mobile Fab Lab at the same time. This was when Sam was with the Fab Lab Juarez, and you know, Sam and I have like a good friendship. We've, you know, visited each other's Fab Labs, and I remember, you know, helping Fab Lab Juarez getting set up with some of their CNC machines back in the day, like early days. I'm sure you guys have evolved like so much and grew so much since then and have been doing amazing stuff. But exactly as Pablo says, the mobile Fab Lab, you know, gives that flexibility. And for us, it's really about reaching out to the rural and semi-rural communities near El Paso, right? Like the really far school districts like Canutillo, San Elizario, you know, some of the schools in Horizon. We're located in downtown. So I feel we're pretty centrally located, but for a lot of these schools, that's like still a 30 to 40-minute commute just to, you know, come to the space. And for some of these schools with very tight budgets, you know, it's really hard busing the kids in. So in terms of transportation, in terms of helping get the resources to the most underserved neighborhoods, which are usually these schools in peripheral neighborhoods that are hard to access, you know, it's a great way for us to really be impactful with those kids. But in terms of bringing it all together, like sort of, you know, orchestrating like all of these resources, and I think, you know, I'm a big believer. I know the word ecosystem gets thrown around a lot, but I really do think that it has to be an ecosystem. One organization cannot do everything. And I hope that, you know, we'll be able to have a really robust and flourishing tech ecosystem here, similar to what you guys have at Tech Hub, you know, for El Paso, because I can see, you know, a lot of organizations really benefiting from complementing each other, and you know, and really creating pathways for people, right? Like this is where our services stop and our expertise stops, but we can point you to other experts in the community. And I think it's not about just leveraging one resource or only promoting your own resources, but being knowledgeable and really open-minded about what everyone has to offer in the community, because that's the only real way forward for us. Is we need to act as one organism, as one community, right? I mean, even on two sides of the border in two countries, we still have to recognize that your resource is my resource, and together we can go a lot further, right? So I think, again, it's a matter of overcoming, of course, some of the logistical and infrastructural barriers. We do exist in two, you know, different spaces, and we have different laws and regulations that we have to abide by. But in terms of, I love what Sara said about open source exchange of ideas, right? Physical products don't have to cross borders. You can send files with the click of a button now, right? In the digital age. You should just, you should share ideas and then go to your local manufacturer or fabricator and have it produced with your local resources. After all, that is the most sustainable way of going about manufacturing. And in fact, when we attended a digital fabrication conference the year before last year, time is weird, sorry, I always have to pause and think about like when things were, because they feel, I want to say last year, but it's actually the year before. We went, and the Fab Labs, we heard a presentation from the president of the Fab Foundation, Sherry Lassiter, and she said that the Fab Labs are now making a commitment to the UN sustainability goals. There's 50 of them, and they range all from gender equality to economic sustainability. And I think that's really important to keep in mind, is that, we need to create a sustainable future for our region, right? And in order to do that, we really have to make sure that every part of our ecosystem is healthy. And I think, yeah, and that's ultimately how we really leverage resources towards innovation and ingenuity, is by working in a symbiosis with each other.
Okay. Oh, that's great. And that's where the phrase that comes to mind is that the one that says that the ingredients don't make the dish, is the recipe that does it. So yeah, not just having the technology, not just having the machines there, it's really what you do with it, what fuels innovation, what's important. So we're about to close off on the hour now. Just one quick final question. If a person, like for example, a parent or a company, has these resources, let's say 3D printers or CNCs or whatever resource, what can they do to foster innovation in themselves or in others? Like for example, a parent to their children, or a company to their research and development. What can someone do with resources to foster innovation, like independent of Fab Labs? Yeah.
I think that the first thing you have to do when you have any machine, for example, a 3D printer, is experimentate. So you can go with know the functionality of the machine first of all, and then you can go to experiment with materials, and then with different models. For example, for the 3D printer, if you have laser cutting, you have to learn about the digital document that you have to be able to use the machine. And you have to learn, you have to experiment, you have to trial and error, you have to try to make things, because it's very different for people like are used to do things with their hands, or for example, are a carpenter or I don't know, our artisan, to make them understand how digital fabrication works. So the thing is experiment, is have an open mind, have a creativity to make new things, and try to experiment with new materials and new processes to can create a new product or a new prototype. Many times when you are working in some project, you have in your mind a project or a product or a prototype that is going to be like this or like that. But at the end, you can work with these processes and better or a different product that it can help you to make different things, different results.
Okay, Thank you. Kathy, same question. Could you keep it really quick? What can somebody do to foster innovation with the resources?
Yeah, definitely. I would say that the best way to foster innovation is to find a problem, to really locate, like look at the world around you and find a problem to solve, whether it's for yourself, no matter how small, or for someone else, right? It could be something as simple as designing a assistive device for somebody with arthritis so that they can, you know, open a jar easier, right? It could be something silly like how many people, you know, get their grocery or they buy groceries and then when they are unloading it from the car, it hurts their hands, right? Like, why don't you 3D print some kind of contraption with hooks that you can attach all your grocery bags to, right? So get really creative. I mean, that's the point is the technology is there, but at the end of the day, it's not about the technology. It's about the makers and the users, right? It's about the people who create and the people who it's being created for. And I think, I personally always think that sometimes we are more motivated and more fueled by passion when we're creating for someone else, when we're helping someone we love, a friend, you know, someone in need. Sometimes our creative juices get flowing even more. And I've seen amazing projects, you know, like prosthesis projects, assistive device projects that come out of that need to want to solve problems that a lot of people have. And that is the heart of design, is finding problems and solving them. And it's also the heart of innovation. The technology and the machinery, those are just tools. Those are just mediums that you use. But at the end of the day, it's about the humans who make them and use them.
Great, awesome response. So we are now 5 o'clock, and just to finalize this, where can people find you? If you could share your contact information on the chat box. There's actually a question from Jimmy Vigo. That's from the audience that was asking that he's a professor of chemical molecular chemistry, and he utilizes models with atoms and that to represent proteins and stuff like that. And those models are very expensive. So he was kind of wondering if producing or developing those kinds of products would be helpful. Well, contacting you and developing those types of ideas. So yeah, I guess with this talk, we've come with a lot of ideas. There's a lot of resources in the region for product development, and for anybody who's in the audience who's wondering if they have something that they could develop or build, there's definitely the people where they could approach and learn, and that will help on the design. So here, I would just like to shamelessly plug the MCA and the Fab Labs have a project on hand that we're working on. It's called the Nurse to Innovator program. Kathy, could you pitch the Nurse to Innovator?
Yeah, I wanted to bring it up several times during our conversation, but I didn't want to, you know, I didn't want to get the cat out of the bag too soon. But I feel that the Nurse Innovator program is really, you know, the synthesis of everything that we have been discussing, from community engagement to storytelling to, you know, engaging people who may not think that they're makers, to leveraging tools and resources, to ultimately creating more you know, entrepreneurship opportunities. So it's like everything that we talked about, which is a great way to end this talk. But we are going to be working with a cohort of nurses from both Juarez and El Paso, and we will be doing a zero to maker training for them so that they can get familiarized with design thinking and rapid prototyping. And we will, all of our resources will be pulled together at their disposal so that they can help solve problems that they face as frontline healthcare workers who are very bravely combating one of the biggest healthcare crises that the world has ever faced. So, you know, so this is really a very innovative program. that we are working on, truly binational, truly grassroots. We're working with, workers who really are very dedicated to their profession, and we are going to hopefully do some maker magic with them and hopefully see, what kind of amazing products and solutions they come up with to streamline their jobs.
Great. Thank you so much. And before we leave, to everyone, remember this, that Tech Tuesdays are a monthly event. Next month, we're going to look into fueling innovation through education, where our guest will be Vianney Romo and Joseph Sapien. They have a lot to speak about education, the next generation of innovators and entrepreneurs. And that's what we're going to talk about the next Tech Tuesday. So finally, thank you everyone for joining in. Thank you everyone for your questions and for participating and staying up until the end. So have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Alberto. Thank you, MCA.
Thank you. See you.
Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye.